That a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, April 18th, 2023. Meeting details and the draft agenda were also posted on our township website. Please all stand to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Ms. Lucas? Ms. Romano?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Banayak?
Here.
Mayor Miggins?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the March 7, 2023 Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? None opposed? Thank you. Okay, today's a really important evening, everyone. I'd like to introduce Dr. Christine Burton, so she may say a few words. Dr. Burton. Thank you. Yeah, you could go right there. Thank you so much. Sure.
Good evening. Tonight we're gathered to acknowledge and celebrate firefighter and lacrosse head coach Brian Roth, firefighter and head coach of lacrosse Mike Gilligan, athletic trainer Gianni Nassani, and the extraordinary human spirit that they showed that makes them heroes. Assisting in their efforts were EMT Mark Monturo, EMT Bill Glazer, high school cadet Amanda Guzman, high school cadet Sophie Arrington, Officer Mateos, Officer Hunt Miles, Officer Kelly, Officer Seba, Kenton McCune, Howard Shirley, Anthony Seaston, and Kitchell Daniels. While we work in a school environment, we plan and train in hopes that we never need to use the skills that we hone. In this instance, the system was called upon and it worked heroically. We only call heroes with whom those we admire and wish to emulate. We need heroes first and foremost because our heroes help define the limits of our aspirations. This evening, our heroes are here in our midst, embodying the qualities of courage, honor, and bravery. I know no braver act than to save a life in order that they might live life to the fullest. On behalf of the district, as the superintendent of schools, I want to send my sincerest thanks and gratitude to everyone involved in Jack's life-saving rescue for a job well done. And Jack, I also want to acknowledge your part in fighting back to receive that life-saving care, for which we all are grateful for. Thank you, and all the best to you.
Thank you. This time, I'd like to ask Steve Roth to come and say a few words, please, the head of our Millburn Short Hills Volunteer First Aid Squad.
Thank you, Mayor and Township Council members, and good evening. First, just one quick clarification, not a mistake, but I just want to clarify. We have 12 high school cadets as they're being noted, but we don't note them as high school cadets. We note them as EMTs. They are full EMTs. They are as qualified as I am or any adult member. So we're all EMTs together. I'm just thrilled to be here to acknowledge the skill sets of the coaches, the police officers, and 4 of our members of MISHFAS, as we call it, Millburn Short Hills Volunteer First Aid Squad, who perform CPR and life-saving skills at the high school. In CPR training, we have a term called the chain of survival. And when all aspects of this are followed, the survival rate is increased drastically. This includes early detection, calling 911, early CPR, early defibrillation, and advanced life support. All of this is what occurred at the high school. At the First Aid Squad, we continuously train for events of this sort with our in-house instructors. So our squad has now decided to extend this education to the public. And so that we have more people that are properly trained. We're hoping to start this program this summer, and we'll have classes at our headquarters at 188 Glen Avenue, Milburn, at the Milburn train station. We will advertise this through our Facebook page and our website, which is mshvfas.org. So please stay on the lookout for our schedule. And for those of you who may not know, we are and have always been an all volunteer first aid squad. And we're always looking for volunteers. So here's just a little plug. We will train you. We will get you New Jersey State certified and give you the opportunity to serve your community as these heroic people have just done so. So if interested, please contact us through our website, mshvfas.org. And certainly most importantly, we wish good health to Jack. And thank you to all of those who participated in the life-saving event. Thank you.
You know, it's so exciting to see such a filled room. You have no idea. Normally, we're sitting up here and there's maybe 5 people in the room, and all family and friends, of course. So this just moves my heart. So it's what makes our town so special. Just this small town Americana that I, as a mayor, and I know everyone on the Township Committee really tries to push forward within our community. And I always believe no one succeeds alone, and nothing says that more than what happened that day to Jack, and everyone coming together, and the training that is pretty phenomenal. So if we can get volunteers for our first aid squad, that'd be fabulous. They could really use it, and I'm very impressed, cadets or not, high school or not, that we have 12 people in our high school that are involved. We're a role model for other towns. I really think that's important. But knowing what to do and training every day and hoping that you never have to do it, but ever so grateful that you do know what to do and that you saved a life that day. So, did we win?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah! Well, they won, so that's a win. That's a double win. All right. There we go. Okay, you ready? Whereas the Milburn Township Committee values the hard work, dedication, and courage of our Milburn Township firefighters, Milburn Short Hills Volunteer First Aid Squad, and the police, and recognize those who have performed outstanding service for our community. And whereas our Milburn Township first responders protect us from harm and keep our community safe every single day. And the township appreciates these noble individuals and acknowledges that others like them will continue to unselfishly make sacrifices in order to safeguard that which we hold dear. And whereas on March 16, 2023, the Milburn Township Police Department and the Milburn Short Hills Volunteer First Aid Squad were dispatched to a report of a medical emergency at the Dr. Keith A. Nigel Field located in Milburn Township, and for the courageous and life-saving actions for the quick and efficient administration of CPR. And whereas the Milburn Township first responders and the Milburn Township public school staff, outstanding efforts, gave someone another chance at life. And whereas the township recognizes the 2023 boys lacrosse team, especially Quentin Keene, who was responsible to run and notify the athletic trainer immediately once the coaches realized an emergency was taking place on the field. In addition, the township recognizes coaches Anthony Siestone and Kitchell Daniels for keeping the rest of the team at bay and safe in the locker room. And now therefore be it resolved, the Township Committee of the Township of Milburn And on behalf of Millburn's Township residents, on this 18th day of April, 2023, recognize firefighter head coach Brian Roth, firefighter head coach Mike Gilligan, athletic trainer Gianni Nasonte, coach Howard Shirley, EMT Mark Montoro, EMT Bill Glazer, high schooler Amanda Guzman, high schooler Sophie Araton, EMT Amanda Guzman, and EMT Sophie Araton, Officer Matos, Officer Hunt Miles, Officer Kelly, Officer Seabohm, Quentin Keene, Coach Anthony Siestone, and Coach Kitchell Daniels, who all assisted in the successful rescue, and extend our appreciation that they so rightly deserve for their selfless and heroic acts and the assistance in protecting a resident's life. Maggie Miggins, Millburn Township Mayor. Thank you. So I'm going to read these names again, and if you would come forward to have your proclamation. Head coach Brian Roth.
Yep.
Shall we have them stay up here? Yes, why don't you stay? That'd be great. Firefighter head coach Mike Gilligan. Thank you so much. Athletic trainer Gianni Nasonte. Do I say that right? Coach Howard Shirley. EMT Mark Montoro. Yeah, come on, it's fine. Okay. EMT Bill Glazer. Let's see. EMT Amanda Guzman. EMT Sophie Araton. Sophie's also on our environmental commission. That girl's working hard. Officer Matos. Officer Hunt Miles. Officer Kelly. Step out for a call? Okay, we'll hold it for. Officer Seabohm. Quentin Keene. Coach Anthony Siestone. And Coach Kitchell Daniels. missing anyone? I have two. Did I miss somebody? Hold on. Roth, Gilligan, Esconte, Shirley, Montoro, Glazer, Guzman, Harrington, Matos, Hunt Miles, Kelly, Sebone, Quinton, Coach Anthony. Yep, that's good. So we have an extra, that's all. But one for Coach. When Officer Kelly comes back and becomes in, we'll give him a big round of applause, right? Oh, we have one for Dr. Burton. Dr. Burton. Thank you. Sure. And then we can take a picture. And then Jesse. Are you ready? One picture?
Yeah, sure.
Line up
Wanna go in
this
front?
Daddy, me. Jack, you want to come up and get in the picture? Come on. Camera will know. Can we see? Can you see everybody? Come here, you come in front. Yeah, everybody good? Everybody in? Good. Hold on one second. Yeah. Wanna see? Great. Yeah, good. Ladies and gentlemen, I did want to introduce you to Mr. Smith. Would like to say a few words. Oh my God.
I'd just like to thank you all so much for everything you did. I've been learning CPR for 30 odd years and everything that you did was perfect. I mean, like, seriously, I just don't understand how we could be so lucky to be in a town like this, to have all the support that you gave Jack on the day. And, you know, your quick response times have basically meant that he's going to, you know, we're looking at a full recovery.
Good. Jack, you want to say anything? Or you shut up? Jack, shut up. But we would love to thank everybody who showed up today. This is so important. As I said in the beginning, no one succeeds alone, and it's because of all of you that he's here today. So thank you. Whether it's Mike Roberts, who hired Brian way back in the day. You just never know when God puts somebody in your path for a reason, and you have to just believe. All good things happen. So good job. Thank you so much. Now, if you'd like to stay and listen to us do the budget, you can. However, we'll give you a 5-minute break. Okay, there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd love for you to be ready to provide some reports. Mr. Cohen, do you have anything to report to the
I do.
township? Thank you.
First of all, two things from the library committee. They're still collecting books for the annual book sale. They're collecting them through the 23rd, and then the book sale starts on May 4th. Also, they're doing a survey to help them with their strategic plan, and they're looking for as many responses as possible. So far, the responses have been good, but more is always better. So you can find both information on the book sale and information on the survey on their website, which is milburnlibrary.org. The other thing is at our meeting yesterday, it looks like the visit statistics and the circulation statistics at the public library are now exceeding pre-pandemic levels. So that's certainly very exciting. The other thing, I've talked about it before, but this is, I promised the last time, Saturday is Founding Day. So I'm going to read some information that was prepared. Milburn's second Founding Day celebration scheduled for Saturday, April 22nd. The event is organized by the Community Engagement and Diversity and the Arts Committee with the help of a number of local groups and will take place in Taylor Park and throughout downtown. The event starts with a community litter cleanup from 10 to 12, which is organized by the Short Hills Garden Club. Volunteers can simply show up to Town Hall at 10 a.m. The Milburn Short Hills Historical Society has organized a number of events, including costumed historic tours of the downtown, 19th century candy samples, a meet and greet with Milburn's founding family, the Condits, and historical games and educational programs. The Environmental Commission will provide seedlings for residents to plant in their gardens to enhance the local plant population, and the food pantry will collect donations through their Stuff the Bus campaign. A 19th century band will perform songs from the founding era and explain the history of the period. Through a grant from Essex County, Explore Milburn Short Hills will support a variety of community arts programs, including classes for kids and teens led by Artivino and One River Studio. Various public art projects will be created during the event and donated to Explore by Jesus Nunez Gallery, Must Art, and Nancy Cook, a local weaver who will be using a historic loom. Explore has also recruited over 20 local and regional artists for an open-air art exhibition in 4 locations around Taylor Park, including the historic Rose Garden. Finally, Explore is adding to their public art inventory with the installation of multiple murals. They will install a new mural at Styling Canine at Short Hill Station, the Milburn Art Alley in downtown, 2 vacant storefronts, the former Fudder's Shoes and the former Priscilla's of Boston on Upper Milburn Avenue, and beautiful flower garden images on the downtown parking pay station kiosk. This, I'm sure you've seen around town, is the poster. If you'd like more information on the schedule with all the times for the activities I mentioned, you can find that, and also to sign up if you'd like to volunteer at exploremilburnshorthills.org/founding-day. It's going to be a pretty extensive event, and I hope everybody can make it.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Deputy Mayor Vinayak, do you have anything to report?
Sure, Mayor. Thank you. As you may know, we have flood mitigation dedicated team that meets every 2 weeks. We had a public session a few weeks ago was on East Branch. Last week we had Van Winkle. There were 3. The next one would be West Branch, and that will happen. The public session will happen sometime I think in June. And I think it's online on YouTube. You can see it. It went very well, both the meetings for East Branch as well as Van Winkle. We had some great inputs from the residents. And then Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board meeting we had last week. Again, this was quarterly meeting earlier. Now it's at a monthly rate until the June before the summer. So I ask or request everyone to attend. If you have any comments, concerns about the pedestrian safety in town, please bring it to the meeting. You can also go on the link on pedestrian safety page, put it through that, or you can also write through SDL portal. Thank you.
Anything else? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Romano?
Thank you, Mayor. Just another plug for Stuff the Bus on Founder's Day Saturday. Please remember to bring your non-perishables, no glass, nothing open, nothing expired, please. There, for the full days events, like Committeeman Cohen said, are on exploremilburnshorthills.org. Also, the second of 2 social media classes is being held tomorrow at 9 a.m. by Zoom. The third class is on April 26th, 5:30 here at Town Hall. Anyone interested can email Steve at exploremilburnshorthills.org. Explore is also hosting a 2-part class, Customer Lifetime Value, How to Monetize Long-Term Relationships with Customers, May 2nd and 4th at 9 a.m. Anyone interested can email Amanda at marketing@exploremilburnshorthills.org. That's all I have.
Thank you so much. Mr. Brewer?
No reports now, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald? Yes.
Yes, just 2 brief things. One is, last night, we held a affordable housing public session. That information is currently on YouTube and on the website under the affordable housing page. And that was held last night in the library on affordable housing. The second thing I'd just like to report is that we had a pre-con meeting for our 2022 road improvements that will be taking place. They're projected to start in the middle of May. The roads that are being improved under the 2022 funds are Edwards, Old Hollow, Campbell, Myrtle between Milburn Avenue and Mountain View, Pine between Wyoming and Sagamore, Madison, Rolling Hills, and Exeter. Again, this is a road reconstruction. This is not necessarily just milling and paving. This will also be any necessary curb work, drainage work, things that are associated with those roads. On tonight's agenda is the second reading of the ordinance for the 2023 road improvements, which are of some of the busier roads in town, and that work will take place over the summer. So we'll be sure to alert the schools about that program for this year, for 2022, as that will be taking place while school's in session. But again, these are some secondary and tertiary roads that will not be all that impactful, but we'll make sure that everybody is aware. And I'll continue to update the public as we get closer to those improvements.
Thank you so much. Also this year, we did it last year and it seemed very positive. We will be having another shredding event in town. So mark your calendars for May 13th. More details to follow. Last year, we did it from 9 to 12 in lot 19. So we plan on doing the same again, but that'll be on May 13th. And that's it. Great. Also, well, yes, the DMV filled up quickly at the library. So Assemblyman McKeon was responsible for getting that for us. So we've asked him to see if he could add another date as well. Public comment. When invited to speak, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and whether you're a Milburn resident and or property or business owner, and speak loudly so that your comments may be understood by all and properly recorded. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and are readily available to the public. For the convenience of our community, there is a remote option available. If you called in and would like to comment, please press *6 now. If you're attending by computer or electronic device, please click the raise hand button. All members of the public wishing to speak will be put into the queue to address the committee. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers are asked to limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. You will be prompted when there's 30 seconds left. Each individual will be given 1 opportunity to make their public comment. Please be patient and we will address each member of the public that wishes to speak. This is a business meeting and please do not address professionals or staff directly, and please direct all your comments to me. A reminder, we are all neighbors and personal attacks will not be tolerated. I will now open the public comment period.
Hi, Ben Stoller, Milburn resident on Wyoming. So listen, that was heartwarming to see such a great turnout for the EMTs, the coaches, the fire, police, and the coaches, and fantastic for Jack. Just amazing story. And it really epitomizes the fabric of our community and the real family that we've built here in Milburn Short Hills. You know, last night, Alex did a fantastic job of moderating the the DPW site discussion. I'm going to ask one question, and this was a question I had asked last night and was not answered, and I'll have Mr. Brewer hopefully answer it. And this really circles around the idea of 100% low-income housing on a revitalized, remediated DPW site versus taking the 75 families and integrating them into our community where we can feel the love that we felt here tonight with the EMTs. I know the TC is, unilaterally made this decision to move forward with it because we felt that the courts had a gun to your head, not my quote, someone else's, from the TC. So Mr. Brewer, the question is, with all things being equal, with the TC's unilateral decision to build the 75 units, 100% low-income housing, is there anything that's legally doable to put this to a vote of the town residents, the people who are paying the taxes? That simple. I'm going to sit down now. That's the question I'd like to answer. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Stoller.
Jeffrey Feld, a resident. I live in the Hartshorn area, I guess. I want to talk more about the agenda items. First, again, there's a court hearing tomorrow starting at 9:30 in the affordable housing. As to the bill list, again, it seems that we're now paying for the transcripts of the TC meetings. Why aren't they posted on the agenda after we pay it? When this gentleman was retained, I think in October 2021-ish, he promised that we would have S&W reports with the bill list. We haven't had it. On the bill list, they talk about a payment to for two trust funds. It doesn't specify which trust fund they're coming to. Also, back to last meeting, I had questions about Attorney Cantor's payment on the bill list, and whether there was a change order increasing his amount. I have not received one. As to the resolution as to tax appeals, where we're giving a refund, it's pretty substantial. It covers several years. The entity that's receiving it is an LLC. I don't know what Daniel's law applies to an LLC. Also, because it's several years, I assume that the monies are coming from past year reserves rather than this year's, even when the payment is being made, that money's been reserved for those past years. And because you're changing probably the assessment, does that affect what happened at the SID? Because I believe that property is located in the SID. As to the next resolution, where we rather than giving actual cash payments, we give credits. How is that reflected in our budget? Is an adjustment made at the end of the year? Retroactive, because when you do at the end, beginning of the year, you're trying contemplating, because I think that's probably retroactive. I don't know how these credits work as to revenues, because if you're giving a credit, it'll be on the current tax payment. So how do we reflect that in the budget process? The budget introduction, I look forward to that, but I wish there was a presentation before I stood up tonight to know what's going to be happening in the budget presentation. Also, there's a unique resolution tonight about a budget certification. I've never seen a resolution like that in all my years. And I just like to know why this year you're doing it. Is it just because you're doing self-examination rather than going down? But why? I've never seen that resolution before in all my years. Also, it seems like you're going for proposals to recycling markets. Is that related to the solid waste commercial pickup? Because I still waiting for the introduction of the ordinance as to the change in the policy as to commercial solid waste. As to later on your discussion of pedestrian malls, that has to be done by ordinance. I believe it needs a traffic study. We're still waiting for the calendar year 2020 accounting of when you shut down Main Street, because that was done prior to the SID's existence. And it seems that this might be, again, a fait accompli, because the SID has already entered into contracts for people to perform. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Feld. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, committee members, and Mr. McDonald. I am Mayor Diane Eglo. As you know, we retain our titles. I tuned into last night's affordable housing meeting at the library. I was surprised, Alex, that you referenced me when RPM's plan for the 9 Main Street 100% affordable project was brought up. This is a terrible plan that I was never in favor of. It's clear that this current TC has no intention of tweaking any portion of the settlement agreement. I want to be very, very clear. I stand vehemently against the RPM proposal for 9 Main Street. I was always in favor of the proposal by L&M, the proposal that you, Alex, kept hidden in your desktop instead of sharing with the committee and the public. I was always in favor of that. That proposal makes infinitely more sense, better utilization of the entire DPW site, and importantly includes ratables and mixed housing. What will go there is a disaster. How can any of you seriously justify having a 100% affordable housing project within several feet of the remaining dump site? Now that portion of Main Street in Essex will forever be disjointed and poorly configured. There will be traffic and safety issues by maintaining and using the one existing driveway for egress and ingress, and little or no green space. It's absurd that this proposal was not only improved, but pushed by our planner McManus and approved by topology. I know Ms. McManus, Ms. McManus and the consultant we use both have relationships and work with RPM on past projects. This project was green lighted solely by 3 votes. Mayor Miggins, Deputy Mayor Vinayak, and Richard Wasserman. I had no idea of the deep pockets and long-term relationship that RPM enjoys as a favorite chosen affordable developer with Essex County. I did see the winks and smiles between Mayor Miggins and RPM. Mayor Miggins refused to discuss other proposals. We all know Ms. Miggins and new committee member Romano also enjoy very close ties with Essex County politicians. Lastly, I'm curious why at last night's presentation, the mayor and deputy mayor were not seated at the table. Were they even in attendance? Why, Alex, do you run every special meeting where Mayor Miggins is visibly absent? From the meetings about destroying the Par 3 and the Milburn Avenue Gateway. Well, the walkways and plantings surrounding the Rose Garden remain untouched and in desperate need of repair. Alex, you are aware that my husband flipped on his bicycle because the pavers were out of place and created a dangerous condition on Milburn Avenue, a condition that you and DPW were aware of. Interestingly, within a few days of his fall, they were quickly repaired. While Town Hall and our police and fire buildings remain in disrepair and desperate need of upgrades. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eklund.
Hello, Leah Cruz, Milburn Township resident for about 22 years. I'm going to follow on with what Diane said. I, as a township resident, did feel it was a little disrespectful that no one from the Township Committee was present last night. I don't know if you were there on Zoom. Even if you weren't going to answer questions, I mean, you are the people who represent us. There were 7 people there, not one of whom lives or really is employed by the township. And I'm going to comment on something Alex said last night, and other people have said it also in the public and maybe on the TC. When people refer to 9 Main Street as the dump site, now everyone wants to say that anyone who calls it that is racist or implying some negative aspect to it. And for me, and all of my friends and neighbors, it's a term of endearment. I've lived here a long time. I love the dump. The guys who work there are awesome. On Saturday morning, I would go there, see friends and neighbors, maybe then go into town, meet someone for breakfast. I have a neighbor who used to live here. Every time I would go to her house, she would have something that she took from the dump that she upcycled. So people love the dump. We don't call it the dump because it's a negative term. Now that you want to build something on it, you know, maybe you want people to think that, but you know, until it has another name other than 9 Main Street, something like Milburn Meadows or something, I'm going to keep referring it to the dump because I love it personally. But all right, one more topic: graffiti. I posted something on that SDL. Is that the name of it? SDL. Quite a while ago. I think I got an immediate response that my submission was received. I have heard nothing back. I don't know how long it's been, but it's been quite a while. I haven't checked to see if anything was cleaned up. I don't think it was. I haven't received a response, and I've seen even more graffiti in town, and I'm almost hesitant to keep reporting it because I don't know if nobody cares here, but we clearly have people who live all over town. I'm sure you guys all live in different districts. I don't want to be up here saying the same thing if nobody cares and it's not going to be cleaned up. I personally think it's an important thing that we clean up when people graffiti things. Some of it's gang tags. I don't know why we are allowing that. So I will put in another request, there's some now in town right near the, where the cinema was. I took a picture, so I will put that in there, but I hope I get a response. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cruz.
Hi, Tony Wolk, Milburn Township resident for 25 years. First of all, whoever organized the event that preceded the formal meeting with respect to the young athlete who had the medical condition, just to echo some comments earlier, that's what this is all about. I think that's why we all moved to a town like Milburn. That's why we love to feel American, and we should celebrate more good rather than continue to kind of point fingers and blame. And so I'm a glass half full type of person, and these remarks will echo that. So if you watch the news, you read the papers, or even attend these meetings, I think it's easy to think that our government's broken and nothing ever gets accomplished. However, some recent activity at the Milburn Police Department, I think, gives us pause for some optimism and some hope. Some of you are familiar with me because I've been talking a lot to you and other Township Committee members for years about the crime issue in this town. It's something that I think it's something everybody cares about. It affects all of us. It's not an R issue. It's not a D issue. Everybody moved here to be safe, and everybody wants the appropriate resources allocated towards that safety. We haven't solved this issue, but what has happened, what I have witnessed, is that if people and residents come up here in a thoughtful, respectful, intelligent manner and are willing to offer solutions rather than just point fingers and complain, I think more often than not, it's not guaranteed, but more often than not, good things can occur. And with respect to the crime issue, that is what has happened. A month or so ago, they held a special meeting about crime. People offered some suggestions. There were some follow-on meetings, and out of that has come increased patrol, more cars around town. Do the numbers reflect reduced crime? I don't know the answer, but what I do know is that people offered suggestions, and people up on this panel listened, and if considered them and actually implemented them. And so I'd like to call out a couple people if that's appropriate. Mayor Miggins, I just applaud you for listening. I think listening is a skill that often gets underappreciated. And Alex McDonald, I want to thank you for attending meetings with me and others and taking my suggestions and going to the police department and Chief Gilfetter and getting those resources allocated. Because anyone walking around town, you will see more police cars. You will see, is that going to stop crime 100%? No, but we're heading in the right direction. And so having said all of that, we have some momentum, and the best time to continue things is when things are going better. So there is no reason to stop. There is no reason to say we are great, we're doing everything perfect, not even close. We can continue to get much, much better. We're going to talk about the budget, and we should really consider some other ideas that I've talked about in terms of increasing resources allocated towards that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Anyone online, Jess? No? No, yeah, of course. I just, nobody was moving, so I thought, well, we could go to this.
Kind of zoned out. Hi, everybody. Annette, thank you for doing all the retail stuff. I was an ex-retail executive, so I think it's really productive. Just wanted to say that. Okay, really quick. I wanted to read something for Physicians for Safe Technology, but before I do that, I did go to the Environmental Commission meeting this past week. And they are unaware of this whole plan to sort of upend different natural habitats, possibly for the playing fields. So I think that, and they also don't have a Township Committee member on their commission. just a little off, putting to me. So I just want to bring that to your attention. Really nice people. They're working hard on a lot of things. I wish they would work on my issue, the issue that I think is important for the town. And they also are unaware of the lead pipe remediation that's going on by New Jersey American Water Company. I just briefly off the record spoke to Alex on it. And I think that's really concerning that that's not even being put out as public notice. You guys have known about this for a long time. And it seems like I just talked off the cuff to them that they have a real problem in Maplewood, not here. So, but you don't know. So I think that should be a major sense of urgency, at least to notify people so they get their water levels checked for lead. And by the way, I have lead poisoning, so I care about it, but I've already checked my water levels. All right, so getting into, I'm just going to read an article from, I want you to all be aware because you guys have asked me to point to towns about 5G, okay? So the town of Pittsfield, Massachusetts is going through some turmoil about it. I'm just gonna read quickly. So they're fighting an imposing cell tower that's been there for a number of years, I think over 2 years. There are 17 nearby residents to the cell tower that have complained about symptoms. They have moved out of town, like moved into trailers, all sorts of stuff like that. And so the Pittsfield Board of Health actually agreed with them, okay? And they've actually gotten this Mass Board of Health involved. So they actually ordered a cease and desist order. This was back in 2021, 2022 to Verizon, okay? So there's been like this embroiled battle. I'm not like up to date on what's happening at this moment, but I wanted to talk to you about, so they said this is what Pittsfield, the Massachusetts Board of Health cease and desist order was issued back in April 2022. It says Verizon Wireless South Street Wireless Facility operated by Verizon is a public nuisance, a cause of sickness, and a trade which may result in nuisance or be dangerous to the public health for purposes of, they get into all the bills, I mean, not bills, but laws. So basically, the Verizon Wireless South Street facility was operating on the premises to create an access barrier that directly causes harm to certain individuals and renders dwellings unfit for human habitation or constitutes a condition which may endanger or materially impair the health and safety and well-being of an occupant as defined in state sanitary code. I'm not going to give you the code numbers. I can send you the link to this document. It was the first time in the United States that Board of Health has made the courageous determination that cell towers could cause adverse health effects. So I just also want to point out that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is a Democrat, is running for office, okay? And he is an environmental attorney and he works on a lot of great environmental issues. His organization, Children's Health Defense Fund, filed interventional papers in May of 2022. So they're involved in this fight, okay? And they're very, very knowledgeable if you want to go on their website and read about it. So basically, the state of Massachusetts is now involved after the cease and desist order. And so the case goes on and on and on and on. And there are so many documents. I will send this to you on a link. It's just, there's so many documents in here that are really helpful. But I have requested, and I'm leaving the podium in a second. I have requested multiple times to actually see your consultants. I saw the contract that you executed. I've seen none of his work. It's not been presented to the town. And the fact that we're presenting recreational playing fields to the town and opening that up, I think public safety is extremely critical issue, and that should be opened up. I've been waiting for 2 months to get these documents, and it's very, very frustrating. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Best.
Good evening, my name is Jerry Kung, I'm a resident. I'd like to start by thanking Mr. Wolk for his comments earlier. I think that it is very important for our elected representatives to listen to us. And I think we would all like to work together to make Milburn the best town it can be. I really appreciated Mayor Miggins's comment about how it's a small slice of Americana. I think that's really what we all would like to preserve in Milburn. And the unfortunate thing is that one of the things that many people in this room and many people across town believe is that building a 100% income segregated housing project atop the current site of the town dump is going to threaten that slice of small town American suburbia. In what suburb have you seen 50 units per acre densities going up 4-story apartment complexes? And I think the reason why all of us come to all of these meetings is because we want to preserve all that. We want to work with you. And we're trying to get answers to questions, but you keep stonewalling us and gaslighting us. I think Mayor Eglo's point from earlier was a good one. I think that why wasn't market rate mixed housing with rateables entertained? People offered solutions and alternatives, but they just keep getting shut down as it relates to affordable housing. Now, I would like to draw a contrast between the way crime has been handled and the Fields discussion. That was all excellent. And I commend all of you for being there that day of the second Fields, I think it was the first Fields presentation actually at the library. You were all present. Unfortunately, as far as I'm aware, none of you were present at the affordable housing discussion last night. Which is unfortunate because yesterday we finally heard that from our town's fair share housing planner, Beth McManus. She admitted that she's unaware of any other towns that are using 100% affordable housing projects to satisfy only unmet need. Let me repeat, there are no other towns that our planner is aware of that is building 100% affordable housing entirely above and beyond the RDP obligation mandated by the state. The residents would just like to understand why Millburn is being treated so differently. And Ms. McManus went on to speculate that agreeing to this project allowed Millburn to lower the densities in the remaining overlay zones. That justification isn't borne out in the data. So North Caldwell, another essentially fully developed community in Essex County, also built no affordable housing units prior to 2015. They didn't have to agree to a 100% affordable housing project entirely for their unmet need, and their densities are significantly lower than ours. They have no overlay zones of more than 10 units an acre. Their entire unmet need satisfaction is 19%. Millburn's, with the DPW project, the Woodmont Canoe Brook Reservoir project, and the overlay zones of up to 40 units an acre is satisfying 73% of our unmet need. So none of this justification that was given to us is borne out in the data. We would just like to understand what's going on, because if we don't understand what's going on, we can't fix the situation. So let me go back to my point about gaslighting. The entire process for determining the amount of affordable housing for fully developed communities like North Caldwell and Millburn only came into effect in 2015. So if you're going to insist on pushing this false narrative, could you at least please give us an answer to the following question? Was there a definitive number of affordable housing units that Millburn was obligated to satisfy prior to 2015? If so, could you please let us know what this number was? Otherwise, it's clearly impossible for this alleged obligation to have been shirked for decades, given that it's not even been 10 years since 2015. So if you could, I'd like an answer to that question. And I have a few more points if you'd grant me a few more seconds to finish my statements, Mayor. Forgive me if I'm mistaken, but I believe Mr. Beneke yesterday put the total cost of the DPW project at $30 million. I may have misheard. If so, he had a number, I may be misquoting it. Apologize if I am. When was the study done and how could residents see this analysis? I think our community deserves to know all of the financial consequences of this controversial project. And as for the environmental reports, which I asked for at the last Township Committee meeting, I went back and I checked on the website. The only one I could find is still a draft preliminary assessment report. It's not, okay, you're shaking your head. So maybe you could just direct me to where I could find the preliminary assessment report, non-draft version, and the remedial investigation report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Cohn.
Hi, my name is Frank Sacmandy. I'm a Millburn resident. So I'd like to echo some of the things that people have already brought up. It was great that we finally had an affordable housing info session. I understand we've had a couple before, but I couldn't help but realize that had we had those info sessions prior to the negotiation and the agreement, I think a lot of the unpleasantness that we've all been dealing with over these past year and a half could have been avoided. As we've seen with the Fields meeting, we had members of the public come, they shared their opinions, and it seems like the town is going to work together to try and find a good solution that's going to work for the town. I don't know why that wasn't done in this case. I understand, yes, there were court deadlines, but as we've seen, court dates can be moved and adjourned. There are a lot of things that could have been done to inform the public. And I really feel bad for Alex in all of this, because he seems to be put in this situation time and time again by members of the TC, making decisions without consulting the public. And then he's got to go in front of a very angry crowd of people and try and defend the actions of the Township Committee. And that's just unfortunate. And Alex, my sympathies, I really do feel bad for you. But perhaps in the future, if there's any leverage you have, maybe you could try and get the TC to proactively have public info sessions so that you can avoid the pain that you had to go through yesterday. Because I was sitting there and it just wasn't pleasant for me, and I'm sure it wasn't pleasant for you. So I want to agree with the comments that Dr. Kung and Diane Aglo made, as well as others, about how this process was entirely mishandled, and we could have done better. But, you know, I've beaten that horse to death, so that'll be all. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Sacramento. Jean Pasternak, resident. The previous speaker has been listened to. I would have to see that as an exception. This is election time, and candidate Miggins has lost a lot of community goodwill because of the fair share housing settlement negotiations, and her track record speaks to that. My experience has been quite the opposite to yours. This mayor has retaliated against her political adversaries, and she has weaponized town resources to do so. So I am also disappointed that not a single one of you that have been elected to serve us was present at last night's meeting. You missed a lot. I hope you watch it, and I hope you take those comments the same way you took this gentleman's to heart. Mr. Marizzi stated, noting an absence of a written legal opinion from him, that Ms. Miggins had no conflict with her position on the negotiations team for the fair share settlement. No one disputes Ms. Miggins had a conflict with the Canoe Brook overlay. So if she had that conflict, are you asking us to believe that that conflict never occurred when she was in the room negotiating the deal? Was it just Richard Wasserman in the room negotiating, and hence his signature only was on the agreement? Her Canoe Brook conflict contaminated the whole negotiation. Her conflict is global and integral to the entire negotiation. As Beth McManus indicated last night, there was a lot of back and forth regarding negotiating to get a better deal, her quote, by trading off densities, projects to include, such as the dump project, and presumably the densities of Canoe Brook were part of the global negotiation. Does this possible mismanagement of Ms. Miggins' conflict during the negotiations process invalidate the entire agreement? That's my question. Further, in 2021, when Committeewoman Prupus became mayor, the first thing that was done was public comment period was removed to the end of the meeting after the official agenda action items were voted upon. This policy was enacted at every TC meeting the entire year of 2021, including when the fair share housing agreement was being put through. When Mayor Miggins took over, I think by her second meeting or so, it was moved back to the beginning of the meeting and the policy was changed. So this was done under the professional advice of Mr. Marizzi and his partners. We had confirmed last night that residents were denied the right to be heard before the final fair share settlement agreement prior to the TC's vote. So is it fair to assume that residents and taxpayers' constitutional right to be heard before official action is taken on agenda action items has been violated? And I'd like to ask, in the professional opinion of our township municipal attorney, do we or don't we have the right to be heard as a matter of our constitutional rights? Also, there were a lot of questions raised last night that weren't answered. And I do believe that Mr. Petto and to some extent, Alex McDonald were misleading to the audience by stating that the people were given presentations and information. That was all done after the settlement agreement was voted upon, and that was never stated. I think that's an insult to our residents. We learned that Mr. McDonald has taken steps to shift away from Milburn the activities at the JFK DPW site, such as the leaf mulching and preparation for the DPW site to be moved there. We've asked that question many times here and it was never answered, so it's good to have had that answer. And finally, we learned that Mr. Beneke has been hired, that the funding and financing of 9 Main Street, or the dump project, was shifted. Milburn purportedly won't be the backstop, even though an ordinance was passed to that effect as part of the fair share housing settlement compliance. We learned he did a report and gave it to the TC regarding the impact of the schools of 9 Main. Where is the report? Can we have it? Can it be put on the township website? Also, he omitted that 9 Main Street will be a pilot, so payments in lieu of taxes will be collected and no tax dollars will flow to the school district to pay for the students who will live there and attend Milburn schools. This will be borne by as all other infrastructure costs by Milburn taxpayers, and these costs have not been studied and at this point are unknown. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eric Osserman. I'm a 30-year resident of the Milburn Township. I want to kind of follow up on last night's meeting. There was mentioned the Upton, which was used as potentially a comp for the schools. And I thought, let's look at what the tenants, this is not involving the schools, but this is just, how do the tenants view the Upton? Because the Upton developer was selected by the Township Committee, I believe. No? Okay, well then let this be an example of who you don't want running any of the apartment projects that you've approved. So there were a number of complaints online from the Upton, complaining about shoddy construction, too much noise, the people on staff don't give a crap about anyone's apartments, and so on and so forth. So that's the Upton. Then I thought to myself, well, this RPM, let's take a look at how tenants view them. Here's a comment. This company is the worst company to rent from. You pay so much in rent for little to no amenities. So I thought, okay, that's one person. Here's another. The operator, Paula, is very disrespectful and unprofessional. It explains why the building super thinks they can do whatever they want. Here's another one from an RPM resident. The staff is unprofessional and lackadaisical. Customer service at the Somerset Management Office is horrible. Worst place to rent from, said someone a year ago. I live in their unit at Voorhees Station in Somerset, 6 years. Here's another one, claiming that RPM is unprofessional, they will take advantage of you, and believe me, they will. You know, this at the outset of this meeting, you guys showed a lot of compassion, honoring those men and women who saved the life of that student. What this is setting up for is a group of less fortunate people on a dump site that may or may not be satisfactorily cleaned up under the aegis of an RPM that has shown really no regard for this population. And finally, I see that the Consumer Financial Protections Bureau fined these guys $19 million for steering consumers into costlier mortgages. So, I mean, I hope you actually look into the backgrounds of these people you're dealing with. I hope you require, when you negotiate with them, some tenant satisfaction. I hope you really represent us, because thus far, I don't think you represent us. I don't think you listen to anybody. I don't, any residents. I don't really think you bring any professionalism to the process.
Thank you, Mr. Osserman.
You're welcome. I hope you prove me wrong, Mayor Miggins.
Thank you, Mr. Osserman.
One more person. Richard Seibert, Milburn. I just want to remind Mr. Bauer, is it Bauer? Brewer?
Mr. Brewer.
Ben's question. You remember it?
Trust everything to the mayor.
Oh, Mayor, can you remind Mr. Brewer
Correct.
of Ben's question?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seibert. Is there anyone online? Mr. Holman, thank you, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Sarah Sherman, 31-year resident. In researching the history of flooding in the township, I came across a great deal of information on previous township committees' perspectives on affordable housing. It's interesting to connect the dots on how the Township Committee and the Board of Ed decisions were made against the backdrop of the Mount Laurel decision. It is a tale of short-sighted thinking and the belief that inaction and a claim of undevelopable land would provide indefinite protection from a builder's remedy lawsuit. In 1975, the year of Mount Laurel 1, the Board of Ed closed the Washington School due to low enrollment. That year, Prudential applied to build 3 12-story condos on JFK Parkway. Some residents feared that the condos would be home to 57 new students, and there would be no space for them in the schools after closing a school. As an aside, Milburn had no class size policy at that time. The Mount Laurel 2 decision was a major topic in the town in 1983, but we had our own immediate concerns. The Board of Ed closed both the South Mountain and Short Hills elementary schools. The Short Hills School was ultimately razed, but South Mountain residents rallied to save their neighborhood school from either a sale or destruction. One Board of Ed member suggested closing the Hartshorn School instead, because it would be ideal property for conventional residential development, luxury condos, or senior housing. The township planner advised the TC in May 1983 that the Mount Laurel decision meant that Milburn would need to provide more than 1,000 affordable housing units. In June, the planning board attorney said that the decision placed responsibility on Milburn and all other growth areas, but there was a limiting factor. The township had no land to develop. In 1987, the planning board found that the township's housing obligation was 0, and this became part of the master plan. Only 23 acres were said to be available for development, and these did not meet the COA definition of vacant land. This report was submitted for certification, but subsequently withdrawn. By the way, COA had requested that the town rezone Canoe Brook and the Okie Trek. The township continued to maintain in the early 90s that it was meeting its obligation. The township attorney assured the TC that after 1993, Mount Laurel numbers would be lower because of reduced growth in the state. The mayor at the time said there was no reason for Milburn to submit its housing element. Fast forward to years of growth in the township and 2015, when more than 300 New Jersey municipalities filed a declaratory judgment action seeking judicial approval of their affordable housing plans. Milburn did not participate. 3 years later, Milburn filed a declaratory judgment action seeking to comply following the Silverman Builders remedy lawsuit. So this is not intended as an exercise in finger pointing or assigning blame, but my attempt to understand how we got here. The facts demonstrate that Milburn was advised of its obligation, but failed to move proactively and seize opportunities to get a handle on development. The myopic focus on maintaining a community of one-family houses was ultimately harmful to the town's long-term interests. A clear-eyed view of how to move forward is needed so that similar mistakes are not made again. We have another round of affordable housing to meet. Let's approach both the present round of development and whatever follows with honesty and a desire to solve our problems directly. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sherman. I will now close public comment period. At this time, our professionals and committee members may directly answer any questions made by the public. It's not a time for dialogue, of course, or to debate the matter. Members of the public may contact the township or the township committee at any time outside of our business meetings through our email. I will start with Mr. McDonald. Are there any comments you wish to address, sir? Thank you.
So I will start with Mr. Feld and perhaps tonight we have our CFO, Mr. Laracy, here to present the budget. But in terms of the tax appeal, so that everyone is aware, this is a settlement of taxes from 2014 to 2022 of the office building on Morris Turnpike owned by Stone Mountain Properties. This is a pretty large appeal in that $100,000 of that appeal are being provided through the Reserve for Tax Appeals, and it's a $300,000 credit in 2023 when the assessment will change. So that is that particular issue. This does not have any impact on the 2022 budget, with the exception of the payment being made from the Reserve for Tax Appeals. Just to address the Jared Cantor change order, this is something that will be brought to the Township Committee on the May 2nd meeting. When we did Mr. Cantor's professional service agreement, it was in November of last year, and we had that go to November of this year with a $25,000 not to exceed. We have exceeded that and need to provide a change order to the Township Committee. So that is that will be forthcoming. But just to be clear, his bills have been presented to the Township Committee in the bills list, and they have been approved. I just want to clarify from last night when I used Ms. Eglow's name I was only making a clarification as to who was a part of the process when it came to choosing a developer, not that she was in favor of a particular developer or did not state her position, but only that she was a part of that committee, and it was not Richard Wasserman, because there was some sort of back and forth about the negotiating committee, which was Mayor Miggins and Mr. Wasserman, and then the committee that was working on the 75 Main Street developer was Ms. Eglow and Ms. Miggins. So just wanted to make that clarification. Just to follow up on Mr. Wilk's comments, I'd just like to also provide a brief update regarding the township's fiber project. We are still on track for an end of April completion of that, and hope to have things tested and online in early May. So I'll continue to keep the committee and the public aware of that. And not to, I know you might address some of these, but just to be clear on the lead pipe issue with New Jersey American Water, this was a state law that was passed a few years ago. Notice was put out by New Jersey American Water as well as the township at that time. There's a map online that everybody can view whether their particular home has lead pipes. The Township Committee actually took action to waive road opening fees for New Jersey American Water when they were doing lead pipe abatement to incentivize their getting to our residents first. And in some instances that worked in areas that had more lead pipes than others. In particular, I believe the area behind the middle school, as well as some homes in the Wyoming section. So that has been the public was made aware of that, and so it's just been going on for some time now, and they have 10 years under that law to make those improvements to those lead pipes. Just to follow up on Dr. Kung's comment regarding the RIR, that is on the website under 9 Main Street. It is the draft. It is still the draft preliminary assessment report, but the IRR is on there, as well as additional information, including the information from last night's or the information from the public information session that the township did on 9 Main Street regarding design and input from the community on what that project might look like. And that is all I have.
Mr. Cohen?
I don't have anything.
Deputy?
So there was 2 more comments made about recycle market.
Oh, sure.
And the budget certification, if you want to answer those as well.
Yes. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So the marketing and recyclable materials has nothing to do, this actually has to do with the township's recycling in general. When we collect recyclables at the curb, those recyclables then get processed by Waste Management currently, who holds the contract, and are sold to market. Certainly, Mr. Molman can express a little bit more about that, but this is a RFP that we have done in the past which basically says, is there anybody else out there that's willing to market our recyclable materials? As many of you may know, the recycling market is not a very good market right now. So it is important that we continue to look at that to make sure that we're getting the best price possible for our recyclables. However, in general, it's a terrible market right now anyway. And then as far as the Mr. Feld didn't express the exact resolution he's talking about, but I'm going to assume that it was 23-127. Or are you talking about the self-examination?
Self-examination.
Mr. Laracy, do you want to address that?
That's 23-128.
Yep. So the state of New Jersey reviews municipal budgets on a rotating basis if you qualify. So you have to meet certain benchmarks to be able to qualify for that. Either way, regardless, the state reviews our budget every 3 years. That's the minimum. But if you qualify, you're in good standing. You have a relatively clean set of financials. You can self-examine and certify the budget each year. And then every third year, the state will give you a more thorough review. They still give you like a cursory review, but every third year is a thorough review. We did.
Thank you, Mr. Laracy. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. I have more questions.
Yes, please.
So there is, I've heard from a few residents now on different occasions on SDL responses. I've also put an SDL request a couple years ago, but I guess the first time around you get the email, we should follow it through till the end, what exactly happened so we can update the residents. So if we can follow through the process of SDL and give response back to residents would be great. So I would look at you, Mr. Moment, to look into this, please. And so Court Special Master, I'm going to actually say a few things about our affordable housing. And, you know, there are a lot of people that come in and I don't blame them because I was like you, the resident, and we all are resident. I'm a resident like you, have 2 kids in the school system. If you tell me or ask me 75 units, that thrills me? No. But what happened for 2 years, there was negotiation happening and Court Special Master has actually in every meeting said, this information is confidential, you cannot talk. And towards the end, I remember still, Woodmont and Upton was not our choice. Woodland, Silverman was not our choice. These guys came in and wanted to take Township to court and negotiated it where they wanted to actually build even more apartments there. And with the settlement, we actually had to negotiate it down. And yes, we can all say there are 200 apartments there. Well, they had actually settled. They started with 2 apartment buildings, then settled on 1 hotel and 1 apartment building. The apartment building got made, hotel didn't get made yet. It's in front and the land is still there. The land wasn't even allowed to make residential apartments there. They actually made us do that because of that court case, Mount Laurel case. So Silverman, Woodland, and I know people want to only hear what they want to hear. I'm actually just telling what I learned after coming into Township. And there are truths that pinches me too, but it is what it is. Annie Says building that is coming on 2 acres, there's 150 apartments. They started with 225. It's 75 units per acre. It's even more than 40 that what they were trying to do. So 150 apartment in 2 acre space. And that is where builders have actually come with the affordable housing and came to the table and negotiated with the township. It wasn't township letting them. We are all residents here too, get equally impacted like anyone else will do. So when we keep talking about what the settlement was, I agree with Ms. Sherman, who actually came on board here. Once the thing is signed, at least look into 2025 to 2035 proactively, and we'll see how many apartments are we willing to give in that 2025 to 2035 and where. So Woodmont property, which did not come to the table right up from the beginning, we were able to push that back. But what affordable housing did, it increased the density in the overall downtown and brought that 75 unit in play when we said no to Woodmont. When we went back and said, hey guys, you know what? We're sorry, density is just too much. Can we bring Woodmont, look into Woodmont and bring the density down? They said, okay, so now you're talking sense. They brought the Woodmont back. They did not take the 75 unit out. So, and brought the density down in the downtown area. And now you can say no, say yes, but these are the things that we went through for 2 years. Earlier, when Mr. Wasserman and Mayor Eglo was for 1 year, they were negotiating. And then the second year, it went in with Mayor Megan and Deputy Mayor Wasserman. They were negotiating. It was not a negotiation. That's what at least I feel. And it was because of, they kept saying we didn't do for years. So again, people may nod their head, including me, will say, oh my God, what is happening to the town? But truly, we are also resident of the town and get equally impacted, guys. So gentleman came here talking about Upton. He thought we brought that Upton in here. No, those are the buildings that were brought in by those builders. They had the land, they came in and forced us to get them that part and make the residential complex there. There was another comment made by Mr. Sacramenti about having public sessions before all of this. I agree. Wherever we can, now even for 2025 to 2035, I've learned my lesson. Absolutely, we got to have public session. I'm not going to sign anything, whether it's affordable housing or New Jersey State telling me to sign it. Not signing it, but whatever the settlement has been signed, we can go to judge and say, no, we are not doing that. So that's where we are at least for 2025 and 2035. I hope all these people who are coming in here have some inputs and ready to give some affordable housing apartments in there or residents in there. That's all I have. Thank you.
Ms. Romano?
Yeah, excuse me, yes. I mean, I can't speak for other committee members, but I know that on average, we're liaisons to 6 to 8 other committees. So our nights are pretty full, our afternoons are pretty full with other meetings. And we don't talk to each other and ask who's going to go to what public information session. So it wasn't done purposely. And I'd like to also add that I was on a plane last night, but I did tune in virtually. So for those that are checking, thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Cruz, would you be good enough to tell us, I know where the one spot was for the graffiti. I think that was over on White Oak Ridge Road and Great Hills Terrace, that one. You said you saw something else in town. If you'd be good enough to tell us that address so we can look into that tomorrow. No, you could tell me now.
Well, there was a lot by the library field on the silver electrical box.
Okay.
And a signpost. I posted pictures to the SBO.
Okay, thank you.
And then the latest one though, that I saw that I didn't post to the SBO is on the side of a building. I think it's in between the cinema and whatever building is next to it. I don't know if it's that men's shop or bakery. There's a white PVC pipe.
Sure. Okay.
I have a picture of it.
Thank you very much. We'll get that taken care
I'll
of.
tell you another place. If you go to the Trader Joe's and go all the way up to the where the trains go by and look to the overpass, that whole thing is graffiti. That whole area is graffiti.
Coming up in Milburn Ave to Wyoming.
Yeah.
Do we own that?
Ride the train.
Wyoming Bridge is not. If it's going over the train tracks, it's not.
That's, we have no
we can let
jurisdiction, but we can let New Jersey Transit know about that. We have no jurisdiction.
If there's gang tags, we have police look at it.
I'm sure if there's gang tags that the police already know about it.
Okay.
We've got great police here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Brewer, do you want to answer that question?
Sure,
Mr.
I think
Stoller?
there's 2 questions. I'll probably.
You have to just turn off, please. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a question, I think that was phrased, there's 2 things was phrased, just want to address a little bit of the language. It was a unilateral decision made by the governing body, but I think unilateral is a bit weighted. The decisions that are made by the governing body are the decisions that are made by them. They're not put up to a vote. They're not put out to for general consensus. We live in a representative democracy. So we don't have, whenever a question arises in a municipality, you don't go and poll every single member on every single decision. That would be impossible. We never have government that couldn't function. So what we do, every few years, you have elections and you have your representatives who are up here make those decisions. I happen to, there are some very, very limited circumstances where some decisions that are made by governing bodies can be put up for referendum and do that. That's a limited situation, but I want you to think about, and usually there's time limits, there's number of people. I mean, you can't have 6 people. I don't like it. Hey, let's have a vote. There's 18 things on the agenda tonight. Just think if every single one, because somebody or 2 people didn't like it, you had to go and have a full election where everybody, the thousands of people in town, not just the people that like to show up, and it's great to have people show up. This is what public civic duty is about. Great, I'm happy to see this. But if all 18 decisions, every single meeting went up for a public vote, that would be an astronomical cost. It would be impossible to do anything. So that's why it's rather difficult. There's a time limit and it's regulated by statute. It would be difficult to do theoretically some decisions, but yes, but you can see why it would be unwieldy and nearly impossible to have every decision up for that. There's a second question by Ms. Pasternak. Is there a constitutional right to be heard before decisions are made? I know of none. But I'd also like to talk in the opposite. We have the Constitution that was written in 1947 for New Jersey. I don't know of any provision that's in there that you have a right to be heard before a municipal body makes a decision. And in fact, it's a bit the opposite. The legislature has the Open Public Meetings Act, which that gives you your rights on to be at a meeting and to engage in certain things and to hear certain things. And that's a great thing. But it also has exceptions. There are exceptions that the public and everybody can be excluded for certain situations, for litigation, for negotiations. So there are certain things where the legislature has said, not only the public doesn't have to be heard, they can even be excluded because things are confidential. I'm not saying that everything is like that, but it's well recognized that there are certain things that can't be in the public. So the first question, is there a constitutional right? No. It is great that people come out and by and large you hear these things, but to be heard prior to a decision being made, that's not a constitutional right. There are lots of rights. That's not one of them.
Mayor.
Thank you, Bruce. Excuse me. No, Mr. Stoller.
So he's not answering the question.
He did answer the question. Thank you.
Ms.
The
Mayor.
town, yep,
Can I
you may.
have one more?
Yep, yeah.
So there was, I'm sorry, I missed one. We had about 10 builders bidding for 9 Main Street. There was a committee made out of 10. They looked at it and they shortlisted 4. And 4 came in front of the TC and presented what they had. Out of those 4, 1 was chosen, and that was RPM. And it was chosen with the majority, if not unanimous. Again, I'm saying with the majority. I don't know who all voted yes or no. I don't recollect. But out of that, we haven't, or at least I haven't seen the design or this or that. I saw a letter coming from Special Master to the judge suggesting him to give us 60 days to have a builder's contract ready in 60 days. Again, whether that gets done or not, or judge gives it or not, but this is where we are.
You saw a letter that's.
Excuse me, Mr. Feld. Excuse me, Mr. Feld, please, sir. Sir, Mr. Feld. Okay, are you finished? Finished.
So now whether that gets approved by the judge or not, I don't know. But this 9 Main Street RPM, if we are working with RPM, 60 days is what we need to see the designs and get into the contract with them. That is what we are in. Thank you.
Thank you. The Township Committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to any items listed on the consent agenda? Questions? Anyone? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve resolution 23-114 through resolution 23-124, which are listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Romano,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernaya,
Yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes. Okay. Resolution 22-125, recommended steering committee for recreation and open space master plan review. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to resolution 23-125? Questions? None? May I have a motion to approve resolution 23-125?
So moved.
May I have a second? Second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen.
Yes.
Ms. Romano.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernaya,
Yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution 23-126, authorize the amendment to the professional service agreement for master plan element with township planner topology. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to resolution 23-126? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve resolution 23-126?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen.
Yes.
Ms. Romano.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernaya,
Yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. We will be now introducing the budget. Mr. McDonald?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm gonna introduce Mr. Laracy, who is the township CFO.
But before we do that, I'd like to take a 5-minute break. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And before I let you speak, I'm going to introduce Resolution 23-127, governing body certification of compliance with the United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission's enforcement guidance on the consideration of arrest and conviction records and employment decisions under Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to Resolution 23-127? May I have a motion to approve Resolution 23-127?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
yes.
Ms. Romano?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Banayak?
Yes.
Mayor Megan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution 23-128, self-examination of budget resolution. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to Resolution 23-128? May I have a motion to approve Resolution 23-128?
So moved,
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
yes.
Ms. Romano?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Banayak?
Yes.
Mayor Megan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution 23-129, a resolution to approve the 2023 budget and set the public hearing date, public hearing scheduled for May 16, 2023. Mr. McDonald, I'd like to refer to you for the budget presentation, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Township Committee. Yeah, so tonight is the night that Matt Laracy, the Township's Chief Financial Officer, and myself will present the budget for 2023 to the Township Committee and the public. Just in terms of our process, certainly it is a process that begins, well back in September, October, as we start to meet with departments and go over their individual budgets and ask them to submit budgets toward the end of the end of October, early November. After that, we usually go through a capital purchasing process just to make sure that everybody's submitting their capital needs. A lot of that is based on their 5-year capital plan, but also things change rapidly and priorities shift quite a lot when it comes to capital needs. So that's a process as well, going through those particular larger items. In January, February, we start meeting with the Finance Subcommittee. We have these meetings on a pretty consistent basis, going over various aspects of the budget. And then, we get to this time of year, which is when we start to.
Excuse me. Pardon me?
When we start to introduce the budget and we start to go through this process. Just skipping to the last slide, which is really what happens next after this. If the budget is introduced, then what we will do is we'll hold a public forum on the budget on May 4th. That will happen here in Town Hall at 7 p.m. And then we will look to finalize and adopt the budget, and the Township Committee will look to finalize and adopt the budget on May 16th. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt, who's going to start going through all the numbers.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you to the Mayor and Township Committee. I'll start here, and Alex went through this slide already, so we can skip to the next one. Thank you. It's a little wordy, this slide, but it's kind of just talks about our budget philosophy, what we're operating under when we create this budget. The essential function of government is to provide necessary services and promote the general welfare and security of its citizens. A strategically cautious approach to budgeting is vital to achieve long-term financial health and build trust among citizens. By setting realistic financial goals, including a buffer for unexpected expenses, encouraging responsible spending habits, and saving for the future, conservative budgeting can help ensure long-term financial success and stability of the township. That's kind of where we come from when we start this process and throughout the process. Getting a little more detailed with that, long-term budgeting. So we're taking a long-term approach to this. The town has been in existence for 150 plus years, right? And we hope to be here for a long time. So everything we're doing has a long-term approach. New Jersey by nature enforces us to be very conservative with our accounting standards. The accounting rules we're operating under, revenue-wise, are very conservative in that we can only anticipate what we received in the previous year, or that we can prove we will receive through some sort of already contracted agreement. Expense-wise, inversely to revenue, expenses are recognized when they're incurred. Prior to purchase, prior to performance of the goods, the expense is recognized and those funds are earmarked through what we call an encumbrance. And then we do not pay until that good or service is received. For larger projects like roads or large capital projects, There's payments that are made along the way, but those are all done through engineer certifications. So it's a very conservative process. Our financial objectives, management wise, we want to maintain our strong financial position. We've talked about this, but we're in a strong position, rated AAA. We want to maintain that. Our fund balance and reserve policy we want that to be sustainable. We want to draw down on those funds to minimize any taxpayer impact, but we do not want to be irresponsible with those drawdowns. We want to maximize revenue sources from federal, state, and local funding opportunities. The state has been flush with cash, and the federal government has released a lot of money to local governments, mostly state governments and counties. So there are more grant opportunities right now. The process for those grants is not always easy, but we've been investigating those increasingly, and we hope to continue to do that to help fund our projects and ease the burden on the taxpayers. We want to provide a high level of service with efficient use of our tax dollars. We want to advance our public engagement and expand our programming opportunities, and provide and improve parks, recreation facilities, and cultural events to enhance the quality of life for everybody who lives in the township. Capital planning wise, and this is going to be something I think in all municipalities, the capital investment is going to be increasing due to the aging infrastructure. We are currently utilizing forecasting, especially for our roads. We have those forecasted out down the line, and a data-driven approach to see which roads need to be done. We want to employ our debt capability efficiently. It's a very high capability, but that also has to fit within our budget. We want to be responsible with that. And we do want to encourage civic engagement and community involvement in our capital process. This takes us to the 2023 municipal budget. Our net taxable value is the total value of the town that's taxable. That's who we collect taxes from. That's everybody's property that's taxed ad valorem, okay? That's $9,868,444,700. That's an increase of $46.5 million from last year. Those are the increase in ratables. That's done through new developments, but also any bathrooms, kitchens, additions, etc. Our municipal tax rate, excluding the library rate, is 0.451. That's a 1.01% increase from the previous year. And our average residential value is $1,275,400. And that's an increase of $8,000 from the previous year. We operate under two caps from the state. It's a levy cap. That's the amount to be raised by taxation. And there's an appropriations cap. That's just the total expenses that we can allocate in our budget. And municipalities, unlike schools, have a mechanism to bank those caps. So there's less encouragement to use them to the fullest each year. Right now, with this budget, we're 1.9 million under our levy cap and 1.38 million under our appropriations cap. This slide is a little bit of a history on our municipal tax rate and our municipal tax levy. On the tax rate side, you'll see the tax rate excluding the library, and also the penny increase and the percentage increase. Everything gets thrown off when there's a revaluation because the whole pot is revalued. So you'll see that happen in 2017. Since then, we've only gone up about 2 pennies and about 4.5%. Our total municipal and public library tax levy is a little over $48 million this year. The public library operates pretty independently. We run some of their services, but it's a separate tax line. It's within our budget, but a separate levy that we send to them. The average residential tax, that's the average municipal and library residential tax on the average property, is $6,215. And the chart below there is, unless you did work on your house and your valuation changed, the home values are on the left here. If you had a static value from last year to this year, the following information is what you will pay in municipal taxes. Going down the line there, $500,000 home, we see about a $30 increase. $750,000 home, a $45 increase. $1 million home, a $60 increase. A $1.25 million home, a $75 increase, a $1.5 million home, a $90 increase, a $1.75 million home, a $105 increase, and a $2 million home would see about a $120 increase. Now, what's driving the budget? So there are a number of things that drive our budget. A big one that came into play recently, and a lot of municipalities are struggling with this, is the economy right now. Inflation, you see the inflation rates there. The cost of goods and services, 2013 through 2020 was pretty much flat. I mean, that's raising 2% a year, which is funny. That's what our budget cap is, right? So we were operating in an environment where the cost of goods and services was increasing in relation to the caps that the state is forcing us to operate on, and for good reason. Right now, after 2021, that changed. We're operating in an inflationary economy, and where prices are going up 7, 6.5, 6%. And we're still have to operate under the state levy and appropriation caps. That makes the budget process a lot trickier. This year, if you read other local news sources, a lot of municipalities are struggling staying under those caps. The state actually included this year one-time increases or exclusions to those caps for certain operations, garbage, insurance, and items like that. Consumer price index kind of, obviously related, and those costs have increased drastically this year in the last 12 months alone. Other pension drivers this year are one that was also in the news is employee benefits. The township is a member of the state health benefits plan. It's a large plan, and there's a 20+% increase this year passed on from the state. The state did cut a deal with state workers to keep it at 3%, included some plan changes. They did not offer that to the local governments. They did include a $200 million municipal plan relief, or it's not official yet, but in the state budget that starts fiscal year July 1st. We're not sure what that means for us, if we will get money back, what form that will take. The big thing with this is that a lot of the entities in the plan that had positive experience didn't want to accept the rate, and they were able to leave. That creates a less positive plan as a whole. We investigated our options. We're continuing to investigate them. There are self-funded plans, which are a little more risky for smaller municipalities, or really any size municipality. And there are health insurance funds. We're a member of a joint insurance fund for liability and workers' comp insurance. This is a similar idea where we're pooled with other municipalities, and we're operating a plan with them, spreading the risk over a larger population. Our pension costs also increased. There's about a 14.8% increase in the police and fire retirement system. The town pays about a little under 35% of their salaries towards that, and we get hit with an annual bill that is paid. It's due April 1st. This is an actuary. It's done by a state actuary who distributes these to all the municipalities, and there's very little backup that we get, which is unfortunate. And our public employee retirement system, which is the other employees who are full-time, increased about 6%. Other items, the energy prices increased about 5%. Minimum wage has been increasing. It'll be $15 minimum by the beginning of next year, and that really in itself doesn't impact our budget too greatly. But there's upward mobility that comes with that. Other wages increase from that. The free public library minimum funding this year increased by $173,311. Collective bargaining agreements, a lot of them were done prior to the economy increasing, and I've done a very responsible 2 to 2.5% step increases. Leaf disposal costs were also added this year. There's a change in operation that is, might be able to show us some savings. But it's an additional line item in our budget as that gets hashed out.
So just to speak to that a little bit, this is part of what was mentioned at last night's meeting, is that this year, because we have our leaves from last year that were put at the JFK site, they're continuing to be composted. However, because we did a trial with Union County to see about taking our leaves to their facility. As I said last night, what is happening in the leaf collection and composting business is municipalities are being squeezed out by DEP regulations, no longer really even going to be able to efficiently or cost effectively operate these things anyway. And there is a cost to us in the way that we operate them now. And so what we are doing is making a transition to Union County to offload our leaves there. That will open up JFK for future considerations by the committee. This is I believe an $80,000 line item in this year's budget.
Some actual budget savings, staffing in general, we've had about 15 or more retirements in the last 2 years, which we save money on through breakage. We're replacing oftentimes higher cost employees with lower cost employees. Garbage disposal, we did see an increase in our contract last year, but the tipping fees related to the disposal decreased heading into 2023. And we've also, as we spoke about, been receiving more grant funding and actively searching for more grant funding, which eases the taxpayers' burden. A little more on that. In 2021, we received a little over 1.8 million in receipts and funding. This included $120,000 body worn camera grant, almost $259,000 Department of Transportation grant, FEMA reimbursements totaling $233,338, and the widely talked about American Recovery Plan Act that was split into two sections of a little over $1 million. FEMA reimbursements is something that the town does an excellent job of, in my opinion. It's hard to get that money. There's a lot of stringent reporting that's needed. I came in at a time right after a big flood, and I was impressed with the operation that was underway to recoup funding and put it back towards the taxpayers. In 2022, we received a little over $3.6 million in funding. That included over $800,000 in FEMA reimbursements. It included the $1,050,872 second tranche of the ARP recovery funds. We got a Safe Routes to School grant for a little under $600,000 and a local recreation grant for $70,000. And those are just some of the grants. But like I said, there's money out there, and we're trying to get it. Now, this slide is showing a lot of our bills we pay on a monthly basis. You know, everything from utilities to Netflix to the million other apps that we have to get now for our TVs, right? This is a little breakdown of what our municipal services are costing on a monthly basis. As I spoke about, the average municipal tax bill is $6,215. On a monthly service bill, that's $518. What are you getting for those $518 a month? Public safety is our largest cost. At the average resident will be paying $190 towards that. Public works is next at $87 a month. Garbage and utilities, that's recycling and garbage, are our public utilities, $47. Capital and reserve costs are $49. Administrative functions, that's everything from the administrative departments, legal, engineering, etc., $46 a month. The public library costs the average resident about $30 a month. Debt costs about $15 a month. Parks and recreation costs $16 a month. General insurance, $19 a month, and miscellaneous other services that we provide about $19 a month. That takes us to a monthly service bill of $518.
That's not thousands, that's extra dollars.
Excuse me.
Correct.
Per resident.
Per resident per month.
Per resident per month. So if you're looking at your municipal tax bill on a monthly basis. Look at our total tax levy. Now, the county and the school operate on a fiscal year, July 1st to June 30th, okay? So we estimate their taxes at this point, and in July, a final tax bill goes out. At this point, the county of Essex is estimated at $48.4 million. Again, that's an estimate. We're using about 2% for that. And even if their budget, say, is exactly 2%, the equalization between the towns and the county changes. So that number is subject to change slightly. And the Board of Education, and this number is what they've been using, but again, not finalized through the tax rate. was about $98.5 million. We're about, the municipality is about 23% of the total tax bill. The Essex, County of Essex is about 25% between the county and their open space function. The public library is about 2%, and the Board of Education is 50% of the pot.
So just to chime in on this a little bit, is just for some awareness, is that the township issues estimated tax bills in the current year. It is in that fourth quarter bill that things reconcile based on those numbers that Matt was talking about that are yet to be finalized. So just so everybody's aware, you know, we do issue estimated tax bills that allows us to begin collecting taxes, you know, in the current year, and then they are reconciled in the fourth quarter.
This is a breakdown of our revenues you see here, which takes us to the $65,785,232. There's some pennies on there, but I didn't include those. The highlights here is our fund balance. We're using a little over $1 million more, 7.985 million. The library tax increase, which we talked about, and that leads to the municipal tax increase to a total of $44,495,929. Highlights with that are we had strong operating results in 2022, which allowed for this additional fund balance and reserve allocation. That decreases the amount we have to raise from taxation. There's a 1.25% increase to properties with consistent assessed valuation, and an additional 0.48% increase to the new construction and improvements. One of the good things with the economy is the interest on deposits has increased. So, and sometimes we're getting between 3 and 4.5% on our deposits, and we're able to allocate that money back towards the budget. The hotel tax revenue of the township came back to pre-pandemic levels of $280,000 is budgeted for this year. And last year, the state allocated additional state aid for the first time in a long time. Millburn received $123,551. We received that last year, but after we already had introduced our budget. The state made us basically hold it in a reserve and allocate it this year. So you'll see that in this year's budget.
So our total operating cost for last year was could you go back to the previous slide, please? 65.1 million, and now this year it's going to be 65.7 million. So the tax that we get from houses or wherever, that is 44, but on top of it, we actually have all the other monies that we use to operate the township.
Correct.
Thank you.
So the majority of that is different receipts from and reserves that we're allocating. The receipts are everything, state aid being one of them, recreation receipts, permits, fees, etc.
Thank you.
So just to, again, add a little color here on the interest on deposit increases. So while 3 or 4% right now is really good, I just want to be going back to Matt's previous point about how conservative municipal budgeting is in New Jersey. We are actually not allowed to invest in anything but you know, very, very conservative investments, CDs, money markets, things like that. We are not allowed to invest in any securities or other volatile type of investments to protect not only the municipalities, but the taxpayers. I mean, you know, I always use the story about Orange County, California, when they actually had a bankruptcy due to investing in derivatives. And so that is not something you're going to see here in New Jersey.
Yeah. 22, is that your budget or is that a projection?
That was the final budget.
So, I don't know if this is a program, but so for grants, you showed 3.6 million is actual for 22 expected, right?
So the difference there is when we receive grants, they're allocated oftentimes in previous budgets. So it doesn't always line up. Those are the grants that we budgeted for that year.
Correct.
Oftentimes they're also added during the year because they're received mid-year.
We just being conservative.
Right.
Well, during.
Appropriations, salaries and benefits make up about 50% of our budget at 37.9 million. Other operating expenses at 19.4 million, and capital and statutory costs at 8.4 million. In general, the department has operated their 2022 budgets to expectation. They do a good job of monitoring their budgets. They have access to our financial system, and they contact me with any questions. And Alex, maybe more than we'd like sometimes, but it's always a good thing to talk with them and talk through their processes. We allocated this year $3,050,000 in capital and capital reserve funding. The last 2 years have seen an increase in that, in the capital funding. We fully fund the majority of our capital improvements. We talked about the sharp increase in pension and health benefit costs, and we talked about the inflation and supply chain issues.
So just staying on the same slide, the salary and benefits are the salaries for all the employees in the town hall, including public safety, police, fire, DPW. Operating expenses. Could you explain a little bit more on operating expenses? And capital and statutory is what we put in the infrastructure. That is roads, that is wherever the buildings that we are trying to put in CapEx.
Right.
But on the operating expenses at the 19.
So a good breakdown of the operating expenses, if you look on a monthly basis, was those that monthly slide. But in general, the operating expenses are broken down similar to salaries, where the majority of it is with public safety functions. Garbage and utilities are another large one. The statutory costs and capital costs. Capital is our capital funding. Statutory also includes the reserve for uncollected taxes, the pensions, and the state mandated payments that we're making.
Thank you.
Where's the capital expenditure costs on the any type of fields that we're going to be doing for 19?
We'll get to that. Jumping in. And this is a little bit more of a general breakdown, just a graphical slide of some major categories in total in the budget. You know, this kind of mirrors what we talked about, but public safety and public works, general insurance are large categories. Garbage and utilities are at 9%, along with administrative functions, and it goes down from there. Another large item in our budget is a little bit more unique, is the sewer user charge. We don't, a lot of times, have separate sewer utilities where they run that activity. We run it within our current fund budget. We're a member of the joint meeting of Essex and Union counties with 11 other municipalities. And our annual service charge this year is $188 per unit. That did not increase from the previous year. That rate is based on our assessment from the joint meeting, and then we add a capital surcharge on top of that.
So just to be clear, we in your rate, we also include a capital surcharge so that, you know, years down the road so usually every 3 to 5 years, the joint meeting will come to us for a capital project within their facilities. That way, we don't have to spike the rate or come back to the community and say, by the way, we need to include this capital expenditure in our budget, or you know, otherwise try to make that money up. So that's done on a consistent basis throughout the rate period, 3 to 5 years. And then when that capital expense comes up, we utilize those reserves to then pay the joint meeting for that capital expense.
That's a very low rate compared to other municipalities. Next slide. Thanks, Jesse. Separate from our current fund budget is our parking utility. Okay, that budget this year is $2.2 million, $2,208,030. The biggest thing in this budget, it's you know, very strong success, I think, for the township, is that we paid off the last debt related to the parking deck. We were able to do that through a good rebound from COVID. Finally, we lost over $700,000 in parking revenue during COVID, and we were able to allocate some American Recovery Plan Act money towards the parking utility to help fund the other costs. The parking utility will be debt-free to end 2023, which will allow for future allocation towards parking utility needs, capital infrastructure, and other needs. Parking permit and meter fees in general will remain flat this year. So looking ahead, these are just some bullet points that, you know, from myself and Alex, we're really monitoring. Pension and benefit costs, we talked about. That's a big one. What is the rate going to be next year? Do we have other options?
Just again, and what the township experienced this year is that we certainly the same increase that all other municipalities felt. However, our loss ratio on our particular benefits was not satisfactory to move in a particular direction this year. So what we decided to do was continue to monitor our participation in a HIF or a private market, hoping that our loss ratio in the current year will be better, so that our rates will be more favorable as we go out and look for other options. Really to adjust an entire municipality's health benefits for a 1% decrease, or essentially $100,000 wasn't really going to move the needle, and so we're going to continue to monitor that situation.
Collective bargaining, our agreements are all in place right now, but I believe it start expiring in 2024 and are laddered out through 2026. Obviously, a large part of our budget is salaries and wages. A large contingent of that is collectively bargained. So that does drive our budget. Tax appeals is another area that we are always monitoring. We're meeting with our tax assessor, Jason Cohen, on a monthly basis to get updates and see where we're at. In general, new ratables can wipe out any small tax appeals that come on board, but large new ratables maybe coming in the future does not protect us against large tax appeals that could be out there. So we have a reserve in our annual budget that's about 2.5 million, and we have a reserve, a separate reserve that is cash to pay down tax appeals that come in. The school and the county and the library get 100% of their tax levy. So any shortfall falls on the municipality, which is why we have those reserves. The economy and inflation we talked about. Capital investment. Again, the infrastructure is aging in all these municipalities. So that's something where we're funneling more funds there. There's grants we want to get to help ease that burden. I don't know, we'll talk about capital a little more next. New developments and new ratables. There's developments going on in town. When are those done? What's the assessed value? A lot of times these projects could be projected for certain finish dates, but that might not be the reality. So while we expect those in our long-term plan, we realize that those will hopefully be coming in. We don't really want to plan hard set dates to expect those funds. And also municipal services are constantly changing. We talked about the leaf collection and disposal. And in general, municipal services are looked at for cost saving opportunities and for higher level of service as well. So that's something we're always investigating. And next is our capital budget. As we talked about, we funded $3,050,000 in fully funded capital projects this year. That's from our operating budget as well as a little bit of a larger decrease, larger drawdown from our fund balance. 1.3 million of that is allocated towards roadway improvements, which we passed.
That's on tonight.
Yeah, and it's on adoption for tonight. $300,000 for recreation improvements. We have the fiber project expected for completion. We already approved this year the new ladder truck. That delivery is expected for 2025. Again, supply chain issues there impacted and already kind of labor intensive.
Usually a ladder truck or a fire truck will take about 1.5 years to build. This is now, we're looking at 2.5 years to build a fire truck. So I'm just going to quickly go over the 2023 capital budget, some of the items that are included in that. Road improvements, as we stated, $1.3 million. We've had a particular focus on road improvements the last 2 years, and making sure that in the past, what we had done is sort of a Band-Aid approach, what we call micro paving. It would cost us about $250,000 to $300,000 a year, and it put a nice little black sheen on the roads, and everybody would feel good about it. But it really wasn't addressing the issue, and the issue is that these roads need to be reconstructed. They need to be milled. They need to have curbing. They need to have drainage improvements, things like that, and really taking a holistic approach to our road improvements. And so the number is high. The number of streets being addressed may seem lower, but they're being addressed in whole. And so it's not just a mill and pave. There are going to be some roads as we get down the road, down the line, when it comes to this IMS study that we did that gives a pavement condition index of each of our roads. Once we get down the line and the road's condition is improved that we're addressing, it will be more of a mill and pave, and you'll probably be able to address more roads at a time. But right now, that's at $1.3 million. In 2023, those roads are Wyoming. That is the area between Milburn Avenue and Mountain View. Maple, that is the area between Wyoming and Ridgewood or Glen. And that is actually going to involve drainage improvements. The engineering department will be speaking to the residents on Maple because it is quite a big ditch there that needs to be improved. And so they'll be reaching out on that. Fairfield, the whole length of Fairfield Drive, and Highland as well, the whole length of Highland, which is in need of improvement. We're also addressing public safety pedestrian safety improvements. As you know, we put in 2 pedestrian activated signals. We'd like to continue that process and continue those areas that need that. And so we are, I think, appropriating close to $100,000 for additional signage. Those unfortunately cost anywhere between $9,000 and $11,000 a piece. Drainage improvements. This is an ongoing and will be a line in our capital budget every year. These are things that we need to do around concrete flumes that exist all over town, not just in the areas of town that are impacted by flooding, but also areas like Taylor Brook, Canoe Brook, Skiff Brook, things like that are up in the Short Hills area that we have to maintain. And so there's always items that need to be addressed there. For building site improvements, various municipal building upgrades. This is also just a sort of a constant line item in capital improvements, whether that's the town hall roof that does need some attention, as well as the police department who are looking at the old dispatch area and improving that area. Fire headquarters, HVAC, Giroux Park, LED lighting conversion. As you know, there's a lot of lights up at Giroux Park. The ability to sort of start converting our lighting to lighting that is similar to on Library Field, which doesn't have a bleed, that doesn't impact sort of the surrounding area from what you want to actually light. That's what we're looking at and addressing there. And at the end of last year, we talked about town hall and possible improvements in this building. And so we're looking at programming and architectural items there. Taylor Gateway improvements, as was discussed at the end of last year, the committee had asked that we allocate about $300,000 for those improvements. Those are also in the capital budget. Taylor Park Tennis Court resurfacing, Giroux Park pickleball court construction, which will be a very popular one, and that we've heard a lot about. And then the Bauer Center improvements will continue. They're looking at the assembly room there and how we can better utilize that and maximize the use of that assembly room. Vehicles, equipment, tree bucket truck, bombardier utility vehicle. This is a small utility vehicle that we use to brush or plow sidewalks. The township is responsible for an immense amount of sidewalk and crosswalks and crossing areas that we clear in snow. Ditch witch and sewer repair vehicle. Mobile police video recorder. Every 5 years, 5 to 10 years, we need to replace all the recording equipment that we have, and there's an immense amount when it comes to the police department. Now you're adding in not only the videos in the cars, but also the videos on the body worn cameras. And fire department security upgrades. This is really just making sure that our buildings have cameras. And that's also going to be extended to our pump stations, which are what I consider critical infrastructure when you're talking about sanitary sewer. So we want to make sure that we have cameras and the ability to monitor those areas.
So Alex, on the road is 1.3 million this year. It was about 1.2 last year. And year before that, it was what, $400,000?
Correct.
And year before that was also under $400,000. So we have increased the infrastructure in our township to 3 times what it used to be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Alex, the streets that don't have curbing now, will they have curbing when this is done?
So that is a really good question. And I think that the answer is most likely no. Okay.
Like Maple Street, like Maple you said.
Right. Well, Maple is a little bit of a different, where that has a gully and the other side has curbing. they're gonna bring in that gully and cover that gully and create curbing there. But because what we're trying to do is make consistency within the neighborhoods, right? If a large portion of that road is curbed and there's a few that do not have curbing, then we will install curbing. But to say that an entire street doesn't have curbing, then all of a sudden we're gonna install curbing, probably not at this time. That would really start to eat up our, so like Fairfield Drive, for example, that is a replacement of damaged curbing, not necessarily introduction of all new curbing. But on Maple, yes, it will be curbed.
Related to capital, obviously, there's some debt component. We've been fortunate with our financial position to fund most of our projects through cash, but we do utilize debt to pre-fund grants and also fund other needs. We did receive a AAA rating this year. On February 3rd, Moody's wrote that our initial AAA rating reflects the township's extraordinary residential wealth and income, strong finances, and moderate leverage. With all local governments, governance is a key driver of this rating. The township has a history of conservative and stable management and budgeting. This has enabled the township to eliminate its long-term debt in favor of small bond issuances and pay-go capital while maintaining healthy finances. And that rating kind of echoed our philosophy that we're operating under. We have a current net debt of 0.16% out of an allowable 3.5%. And our outstanding debt at this time is $4,030,000. And you can see since 2017, we have been paying off our debt at a rate much higher than we've been issuing new debt, which has decreased our debt from about $12.5 million to the current little over $4 million level. And with that, we'll reiterate that we're going to have a public information session on May 4th, 7 p.m. I think it's planned for. And the public hearing and adoption of the municipal budget is planned for May 16th. Any questions can be emailed to the finance department at milburntwp.org. And the proposed budget right now is online. The presentation will be posted online. With adoption, there's also the user-friendly budget, which is the same budget in a little different format with some other information on there. This year, the state only wants that with adoption, but we'll get that up online prior to adoption.
What location is the information session at?
Here, Town Hall.
Oh, well, I didn't know. So there's stuff that was listed.
With that
Q&A?
I'm sorry. Yes. At this time, we'll take any questions from the Township Committee.
Mr.
Thank you.
Mayor.
So thank you. Very well done, Mr. McDonald and Mr. Larcy. We as a township has done a tremendous job staying financially controlled and financially very savvy, very good. But our operating budget, operating cost is very high. And I've spoken about this in last meeting as well, $65 million based on our township size. Percentage wise, it looks good because our valuation is over close to $10 billion. So we do 2%, about 200 million, which we as a township do a very good job of 0.46 now. That is again good, but we need to now, I think, while we are in good position, I still say that now we have to go with a different set of glasses, different set of eyes to make sure to look for efficiencies where we can be more efficient. And most of us, our cost, and as I said, use the example last time also, school board is mainly trashed out because of the salaries and because of the people on the payroll. Not talking about existing people, but for the retirement, when the retirement happens, how do we go about hiring new people and what all they have while they are at the job, how many cars we issue to them, and the operating expense for all the employees. We really need to be very vigilant and start controlling it, because the kind of increases that we got from the state, because we have a fund balance, and we still, after all this, we have over $10 million as a fund balance left. Thankfully, we have that to circumvent any kind of high raise. But that doesn't mean we keep increasing our operating budget. Percentage wise, it looks good. But overall, operating cost wise, we are very high. We need to start looking at where we can be more efficient. And again, thank you so much for great presentation. Infrastructure wise, we need to keep spending in township. Salaries, overtime, everything wise, we need to start looking at where we can cut or where we can be more efficient, not cut, just be more efficient while providing better services. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Ms. Cup, Ms. Romano, anything?
No, thank you. Great presentation. Thanks.
Mr. Cohen?
No, I just want to thank you for, for a very thorough and clear presentation.
Me as well.
Thank you.
The public hearing and consideration of adoption of the 2023 budget is scheduled for the May 16th, 2023 Township Committee meeting, which does begin at 7 p.m. at Town Hall. Once introduced, the proposed budget will be available in the Township Clerk's office and will also be posted on the Township's website. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 23-129?
I move that resolution 23-129 be approved and that the township clerk be authorized to have the budget notice published on April 27th, 2023 in accordance with law and the item, and that the public hearing and final passage be scheduled for May 16th, 2023 Township Committee meeting.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Romano?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Banayak?
Respectfully, no.
Mayor Miggins?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ordinance 2637-23. Mr. Cohen, you are scheduled to sponsor.
I would like to present an ordinance entitled Ordinance 2637-23, ordinance amending and supplementing the Township of Millburn Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance. This is the,
So have it. Would you like
so
to-
this is the one, this is an ordinance that brings the fees for the development and zoning more in line with their actual costs.
Okay. Do you have anything to say about it, Mr. McDonald?
Yes. Yeah, this is, and Mr. Cohen is correct. And in particular, this is about individuals in the town that are seeking variance and seeking to place escrow with the municipality, as well as the fees associated with the review of those applications for variance. In particular, at this, just a couple highlights. One is that we don't currently seek additional funds when a review of a application includes multiple variances, so which takes additional time. And so that is included here. Also, new is a zoning permit, which we do not have, which is a really important paper trail. When individuals come in, say they want to put a fence in, they speak to the zoning officer, they fill out a piece of paper, they let us know what the height of that fence is, what location of that fence. We can review that and say, hey, for instance, look, this fence is traversing an easement that the municipality has. You need to make sure that the posts on that or that spread that easement, and you can remove that section of the fence in the event that we need to access that easement. Different things like that will allow us to protect not only the residents, but also have an understanding in the municipal apartments that something has taken place. This is something in the municipality that has not been updated since I believe the late 80s, early 90s, and is something that needs to be addressed with the growing increase in those fees that professionals are charging for various review of applications. And that is the purpose behind this.
Okay, I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law and the item, and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, May 16th, 2023.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Romano?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Banayak?
Yes.
Mayor Miggins?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2636-23. Mr. Cohen, you are scheduled to sponsor this as
Thank-
well.
Okay. I present for consideration an ordinance entitled Ordinance number 2636-23, capital ordinance of the Township of Millburn in the County of Essex, New Jersey, authorizing the undertaking of the 2023 road improvement program in, by, and for the township, appropriating therefore the sum of $1,340,000 and providing that such sum so appropriated shall be raised from the capital improvement fund of the township. Tonight is the time set for public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open.
I'm Jeffrey Feld. I'll be, I think, hopefully fairly brief. First, I am speaking pursuant to a statutory right under Title 40 and through our state's public policy as recognized in our state constitution for robust, informed civic participation. I just want to confirm, because based on sheets 40B, C, and D of the budget that was just introduced, that this project will be funded, will not have monies appropriated from this year's budget, but will be funded from monies that were previously put into the capital fund. That's how I read sheets 40B, C, and D. You're not raising bonds. You're going to basically invade your capital fund that's been previously funded over the years, and you're not taking any monies from this year's budget to appropriate for this project. I'm just trying to understand what you presented and what I gleaned just quickly from this budget, which is 40B, C, and D sheets. Again, I'm speaking pursuant to a statutory right in our state public policy of robust, informed civic participation.
Yeah.
Mr. Larissy, would you like to take that, please?
This
Thank
is
you.
specifically related to the 2000,
This-
to
this-
this
this-
road
this street.
ordinances.
Yeah,
Street project.
so
Yeah.
essentially, yes, what we're doing is we're allocating the funds now so that we can, because, and just to give a little bit of background on this, what normally happened was the township would pass the budget. We would then start a capital process and pass the capital ordinance. By the time we were finished with everything, we did not have money available to do projects and do things, in particular roads, until mid to late summer. And at that point, we've already missed the window to make improvements to roads without having a significant impact to the community, the schools, and things like that. We've asked the Township Committee to introduce this ordinance ahead of time so that we can then make those funds available for and start that project so that we can do that work in the summer. So this will be essentially a capital ordinance that will be funded by the 2023 budget.
Right. What we're doing to allocate the funds ahead of time is we have a balance in the capital improvement fund. We're allocating those funds and some temporary budget capital funds towards this. And then when the budget's adopted, it will replenish the fund.
Correct.
I don't know if that's reflected. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
I move that this public hearing be closed and that the ordinance be adopted on final reading and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Romano?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vanaya?
Yes.
Mayor Miggins?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, old business, the establishment of a pedestrian mall. Mr. McDonald, do you want to provide an overview for that so the committee can discuss it?
Yes, so the Special Improvement District Explore Millburn Short Hills has requested the Township Committee to go through the process to close a portion of Main Street between Essex and Millburn Avenue for the 2 summer months following the closure of school and prior and after including Labor Day weekend. That would create that Main Street closure, which they have in the past programmed and had events as well as musical acts. This particular closure has been in my eyes a success in the township from the standpoint of activating the space and activating the commercial district. And so they're making that request again. There is a process that we need to go through in terms of passing an ordinance and presenting that to the DOT to get permission from them to make a closure for greater than 48 hours.
Anybody have any questions about it? Any
No, I think it's
concerns?
I think it's a great idea. It's been a huge success. And it certainly brought more people into downtown. It improves the businesses in the area. I mean, I'm definitely supportive of this.
I know you're going to ask a question, so I'll just.
I asked the question, I haven't heard the answer.
So
yet,
I'll give you the answer.
Thank
now.
you.
So in the, with that closure, what has occurred is that the police department, for security and traffic purposes, have been at that closure for approximately 4 hours on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It acts as a, not only a sort of a presence for safety, but also a community policing activity. That cost of that overtime is approximately $9,600 for the summer. So just so that the committee is aware of that. And that is to answer your question that, and that was reduced at the beginning of the closure. It was 2 officers for that same amount of time. And we've reduced that to 1. And that is, again, the police chief as well as the mayor have the authority within the code to close streets. So that is the police chief's sort of recommendation for that closure.
I'll say that anything that gets the police on the streets and have a presence downtown is very positive. And for the community to see the police doing their work is positive and certainly worth $9,600.
Well, absolutely. $9,600 is great. We had overtime of close to $1 million last year in police itself. So we want to just make sure that it's not because of this street closure. They are really out there also going around the town hall. So yeah, $9,600 is great. If we can just make sure we vet this out when this happens.
Yeah.
The way that this is the spend, anything over that, either the restaurants pay or we offer it to businesses.
Yeah, we can
fund it.
keep track of the overtime for that
Thank you.
particular closure.
Ms. Romano?
I also think it's wonderful, brought out a lot of neighbors, a lot of residents from other towns. Very successful event during the summer. I have a question though. Were we gonna change that parking on Main Street, that 4 to 6 thing?
I believe we did.
We did change it?
Yeah, I'll verify it, but I believe we did. What we had proposed, correct, was, and it was included in the ordinance change at the end of last year, that we would eliminate the 4 to 6. No, what we did was we included 4 to 6 down on Main. Let me look into it, Ms. Romano. I apologize. I don't have that answer off the top of my head, but I'll look into it. But yes, what we were trying to do was alleviate some of that queuing on Main Street. With that as well, just so everybody, we have actually, we spent a few dollars to reprogram that traffic signal as well. The Milburn and Main traffic signal, so that we can flip a switch when the road is closed to change the timing of that light. And that also helps in that.
So it sounds like we have consensus on this too.
We will start the process and if that is the case and get an ordinance in front of the Township Committee.
So also on old business was the proposed Affordable Housing Citizens Committee that Ms. Prupus had wanted, and unfortunately she's not here this evening to speak to it. So should we put it off to old business for the next meeting when she's back? How's that? Okay, great. No other matters for old business. For new business, joint court.
I'll be quick.
Deputy
on that.
Mayor Vinayak, you wanted to discuss joint court.
No, I'll be short and quick on this. Last 2 years, I've been attending the community affairs at Atlantic City that state does for township. And I've attended this seminar both times. And there's DCA, Department of Community Affairs, that Governor Murphy has put in. And they talk about joint court. So I don't know much about it. I was just going to ask if we can get DCA to present us what the joint court means and what they've talked about, the infrastructure they have and what good possibilities are. So maybe we can get them to next meeting and present it to us, what exactly that means.
Ms. Romano?
I mean, I don't know what's involved in having a presentation. I mean, I'm not ready to move forward with a joint court. I don't really know too much about it. I just think that a lot has changed post-COVID, and things that worked before don't necessarily work now. And I think we have to also figure out what we're gonna do with 9/11 dispatch before we talk about sharing courts, but I don't know what the DCA would bring to the table. I have no idea.
Okay,
I
I
don't
do
know.
know
The
that
information
Ms.
session.
I mean, I'd be willing to listen to anybody, but I'm not willing to
When,
look into it.
when, not now, okay, when Jody Rosenberg was on the TC, I believe they looked into doing joint courts and they didn't think it was cost effective for them to do it rather than just keep it here in town, because when you have people that are, getting tickets or something's going on in town, they're not going to want to drive to Madison or to Livingston to have to go fight in the courts, et cetera. So I myself would not be in favor of a joint court, but that's just me, Mr. Conley.
I would want to understand a couple of things. I would first want to understand the ratio of people that appear in court, how many of them are citizens versus, how many are not, if they're all shoplifters at the mall, that's one thing. If there are people getting moving violations, residents getting moving violations, that's another. I would also like to understand how much we're actually paying for the court to get a sense of how much we could possibly save, and is this indeed worth it?
So more than savings, I think what I heard there was and majority of our court cases are from shoplifting from the mall, and you said it right on the dot. But the thing that they mentioned about if there's a child or person who goes for the shoplifting and gets community service, those courts have like a infrastructure to follow up with those kids or with those people to make sure they are going for the community service. Again, these are just what I heard. And that's where I'm not saying that we should go for joint court. I'm just saying we should have an information session for them to really tell us what exactly this entails and what exactly that is. So that's what my thing was.
Okay, Mr. McDonald.
So again, maybe just to initially is providing the Township Committee with, there is quite a bit of literature out on joint courts, shared courts, because there are differences between the two. And certainly maybe that will help, at least just from a understanding standpoint. And then certainly whatever the Township Committee directs me to do and additional information, I'm happy to do.
I'd also like to add just one thing. If we had court in Madison and one of our police officers had to go to Madison, we would lose them for a couple of hours. Where if it were here on a Tuesday, you would, get them over to that court case within 5 minutes. They're done, they're back at work.
And
So what,
I'm not negating, actually, that may be very well the case, so. And that's where I'm saying, if the professionals who are dealing with this day in and day out, they give that information session, we can ask them these questions and they can answer them along with our own professionals here with people who are doing this on day to day. Again, I'm not saying we should go joint court, truly. I'm saying that let's have an information session where they present it and we ask them the question.
so I'm going to agree with Ms. Romano in this one and say we have more pressing matters with the dispatch 911, and I rather us stay focused on that for now. And have Mr. McDonald, in the meanwhile, you can find out some literature and get us some information, but I think that we do have a pressing issue with the dispatch 911, and for me personally, I'd like to focus on that.
I'd like to read the information.
Can you get us the information? We can read it, but in the meanwhile, we do want to focus on that a bit.
So we talk about 911 in the next meeting.
I think
dispatch,
so,
And that's
yeah.
where the new business is there.
Yep.
Okay, and we'll revisit this.
And we can
information
revisit
session.
it. Perfect.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Yes.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night, Milburn Short
Good
Hills.
night.